It is Monday, October 21st, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was very fun. Get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. A little frustrating, but nonetheless fun. It did a lot of sparring today. That was the disappointing part. I was really hoping that one of the other instructors that hasn't been there for a little while would have shown up today, because this is typically the day, if he does show up, that he does show up. And unfortunately, we were not treated with his presence this time. There's always next time. Anywho, it was a good and productive class. I have to admit, though, I didn't get in my my typical Sunday class, and so, you know, I was a little bit, I don't know. That class usually sets my pace for the rest of the week. Like, you know, it's the one where, you know, I've taken Saturday off, and so Sunday kind of kickstarts the whole heart, you know, and gets things rolling, so that when Monday comes around, I'm a little bit more fresh. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit more immediate with regard to jiu-jitsu. And so, yeah, you know, I came in a little bit heavy on my weight. I tend to drift around like 208 to just under 200 pounds, you know, so right around in there. And when I weighed myself today, I was at 207, so I knew it was going to be kind of a drag due to that. But yeah, I was, you know, I felt just a little bit heavy and a little bit sluggish today. But nonetheless, I managed to fend off pretty much every submission attempt that somebody put me in today. And, you know, I felt pretty proud of that, given the volume of them that there actually was. You know, being as exhausted as I was, it was really hard for me to be crafting responses, you know what I mean? Getting to where I'm from a defensive position to an offensive position. However, I did manage to mount a black belt today. I don't know how that happened, but, you know, I guess, you know, every dog has their day. But yeah, I had him in this really precarious position, and I knew that if I got my leg to the outside, that I could effectively sweep him. It would just be really, really slow. And that's pretty much what happened, you know, is I got my leg to the outside of him, and I popped him on his side, but he kept struggling to stay upright and try and resume his mount. But I'd done something where I was like pulling up on, I was like pushing on his arm that he was posting on, or something to that effect, where I was putting that out of his ability to stay up or something. I can't remember exactly what it was that I did on that position, but I managed to slowly basically pull him up to where I kept lifting his hip off the ground, because like, in order for him to get on top of me, he had to be able to base off of his hip and roll over, you know, roll his outside leg up and over me. But I kept pulling his right hip out from under him, and so he wasn't able to base on it. And I swung it far enough around that I was able to get my right leg over. And even after I got to full mount, and it was funny, there was like just this very brief moment where it was like, oh my God, I just mounted a black belt. You know, it's like, you know, but anyway, yeah, so he wouldn't quite settle into that reality at first, and tried to turn up on his side and whatnot, but I managed to maintain the flatness. But honestly, I think the only reason I saw it is because we were going very, very slow and very deliberative to begin with. I mean, but he was going according to the energy that I was exerting, you know, because I wasn't, you know, really going after him. He wasn't really going after me to begin with, but then things kind of picked up a pace, you know. And I did notice today that there was some people putting forward that exertion that we talk about on this show, or that I've talked about on this show, where there's like a casualness around a lot of jiu-jitsu, where you're trying to give your opponent an opportunity to make a mistake or two, or at least make their own movement, like, so you make a move and then they make a move and then you make a move and then they make a move, that kind of thing, right? Well, there's a point where after a while, I've found even the most disciplined of black belts comes to a point where that's no longer as fun anymore, and the harder it gets for them to try and get you into the position to submit you, the harder they go. And so, like I said, it usually lasts, it's like the second or third minute into a 5-minute round where that switch will turn off and it's like, okay, I'm done playing now, I want to get you. If we're going to be at this position again, I want it to be after I've submitted you and we've resetted, then we're back at this position again. And that didn't come. And so, like I said, it was a little bit tough for them, and they were coming up to that 2 or 3 minute mark and getting pissed off and wanting, or just not necessarily pissed, but a little frustrated, a little impatient, and put a little additional strength to it. And usually those are the points, I think it's because usually those are the points that I'm really going for, because that's usually the point where you're so driven on what you're doing, you're so concentrated on what you're doing, you're putting so much effort into what you're doing that you forget something else. You're not putting enough pressure on, you're not putting you're staying on your knee instead of the hip, or, something to that effect where, something has changed that gives me an opportunity to get a hold of you, And so, I was getting quite a few of those today, so I was trying to take full advantage of them, staying in too tight to really do anything about, or without having to change your own position, and taking advantage of the change in position to either get the sweep or, although I didn't get a lot of sweeps today, I think I got 1, maybe 2, but the one, it wasn't really a legit quote-unquote sweep per se, but I guided him through the full motion of the sweep, and did eventually get on a full mount. So, yeah. So it was today jiu-jitsu. Just a lot of sparring. I think we did, 3 5-minute rounds, and then like 3 or 5-minute rounds of positional sparring. And so, and it was pretty continuous too. It was like 1, and then you got like 1 minute, and then you pick another partner in 2, and 1 minute, and then you pick another partner. And so, like, round 5 I took off, but I did come back for round 6, and just a lot of sparring. And you need that, but I don't know. I felt like we probably could have spent a little more time on actual lesson. But I think the instructor was called kind of last minute, and so it was one of those things where she didn't really have the most amount of time to plan out a full class and whatnot. And so I can understand that. It just a little frustrating. Nonetheless, it was a good class. I enjoyed myself, got my ass kicked, learned a little bit. I do feel like I'm getting a little better, because despite the fact that I was at a little bit lower capacity today, I was really mindful to keep my hands in and go for that underhook, negate the arm bar, negate the arm triangle, the leg triangle. Although, wait a minute, did I get caught in an arm triangle? I'm trying to think, because it got really close there a couple times. Like, he almost got me in an armbar. He almost got me in a triangle a couple of times with his legs. And I think he got close to getting me with an arm triangle. But I'm not sure. He might have got me with an arm triangle. No. He got really close, and at the last moment I was able to pull my chin down. Like, before he was able to sink it down, I was able to pull my chin down, and then I kind of bucked him off of me. But yeah, it was very tenuous. It was close a couple times. Managed to survive it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. Gotta get a shower in. And, of course, we're gonna go for some body count. But where to go? Which song? I think we did 99 Problems last time. Maybe Talk Shit Get Shot? I don't know. I'm gonna have to get some more body count. Although, from what I understand, they're working on one right now called Carnivore. So we're definitely looking forward to that release. Let's go with a little Bloodlust. First Dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was 12 Foot Ninja with Adios. Yeah, that was a little bit longer than I intended on going, but, you get in a good shower, it's kind of difficult to get out. It happens, man, it happens. So as far as what we're going to get into today, I've got a couple things on the grill. And I think one of the most disappointing things about cryptocurrencies is people's tendency to still, after all this time, really misunderstand the point of it. I think, personally, I think it has something to do with the fact that the majority of the voices that are being heard on the matter are specifically Westerners. And more importantly, people who already have bank accounts and who already have ATM cards and, really don't need cryptocurrencies per se in any like necessary aspect of their lives. And so the idea of it being solely a speculative venture is one that appeals to them because that's the only context that they personally have for cryptocurrencies. Personally, I've had, wow, I can't even really describe it. I guess a lifestyle perspective change, if not outright, a lifestyle alteration, a significant lifestyle alteration, has been enabled for me through cryptocurrencies. So, for me, while some aspects of it may in fact be speculative, because I do speculate on cryptocurrencies, that's what I do. And I'm probably the worst at it in the entire universe, but that's beside the point. The point of the matter is that as lame as I am at it, it's still kept me relatively busy. As far as being able to do some of the things that I like to do and afford some of the things that I need to afford. And so, I really can't complain, and I really don't share this perspective with regard to cryptocurrencies. But anyway, like I said, I think because most people that are involved in crypto aren't in my particular situation, the vast majority of them are not. And I understand that. However, because they're not, most of them just see it as something to speculate or jerk off on. And it's one of the reasons why, I make it like 2 paragraphs into a product or a service, and I could tell you pretty much right off the bat whether or not it's A, a scam, B, if it's completely useless, or C, if it might actually be of some sort of use to you. And that's just, that's just exposure. But I wouldn't call myself an expert. Certainly not in this space. And anybody who does, they are really lying to you. And I don't care who the entity is that is uttering whatever wisdom it is that they're spewing. They are lying if they're saying that they are an expert about cryptocurrencies or cryptocurrency markets. You can have really good feelings. You can have, deep intuition. You can even know a few things. But as far as knowing all of it, being an expert about how everybody is going to actually use it, whether or not people will actually find it useful or more useful than other options available to them, that's for the market to decide. And again, this is the point I keep trying to drive home with regard to regulators and whatnot. You've got a global market out there that involves things like Dogecoin and Verge currency. These are entirely volunteer-run ventures and currencies that have global relationships, that, and I think it's because these entities have specifically not really sought to cozy up to legacy bankers and whatnot, that and not to say that they've been phobic or against them or anything like that in any real sense, but just that they're not necessarily seeking to be beholden to them. And I think this is one of the things that people kind of miss about cryptocurrencies, is the necessity to have such a elite or overseeing entity. It simply doesn't exist, not in cryptocurrencies. And it's one of the best aspects about this market and the products therein. Anyway, let me get a little dash of hydration here, and we'll get down to it. And so the first article here I got is it's on CoinDesk, and here it is. As Lightning's economy takes shape, devs are split on proposed fee hike. And this is by William Foxley. It was authored October 21st, 2019 at 1:45 UTC, or 13:45 UTC rather. So yes, penis. Fees aren't just a topic of discussion for Bitcoin Core users anymore. As the tech matures and an economy develops, fee discussions are making their way into the Lightning Network too. This past weekend, Bitcoiners and Lightning fanatics gathered in an industrial Berlin sector for the first ever Lightning Conference, with topics ranging from onboarding and interface design to the vogue economics of the nascent payment layer. Lightning Conference attendees said the event had the feel of Bitcoin's early days. However, Lightning isn't quite new. Actually, it's quite old. It's very old, like 1950s technology. Anyway, continuing. When it first debuted following its release of the white paper in 2015, 3 major teams sprung up among a sea of hobbyists: Eclair, Sea Lightning, and Lightning Labs. Over the 2-day conference, questions over wallet design and Lightning apps were joined by concerns over the network's next steps, given its relative explosion over the past year. One such question was the default fees, the minimum price to send a payment through a Lightning Network channel. Currently, default fee settings scrape the bottom of the barrel at 1 Satoshi plus 1 parts per million, or 0.00001% of the payment. In a word, insignificant. 1 Satoshi, 100 millionth of a Bitcoin, is worth around 0.00008252 cents at press time. Node operators have the option to raise the basic fee, yet historically the baseline hasn't deviated much. Blockstream's Sea Lightning Rusty Russell pointed out that some 2/3 of nodes don't charge over the default. To spur the development of a fee market, Russell called for an uptick in the default fee from 1 sat plus 1 ppm to 5 sats and 500 ppm in an October 10th email to Lightning developers. In essence, his proposal would flip the fee market upside down. Nodes would bid down for processing payments as opposed to bidding up. Change is coming. I've got a little bit of news for you on that one. Change is coming. Some level of fee increase is generally seen as necessary in the Lightning community as Lightning lap developers and others build on the Layer 2 system. Russell told CoinDesk he has concerns for future developers working on the basis of the current setup. Quote, "We measure chemicals in parts per million. Somebody coming in new might go, quote, 'Oh, all right, cool. We're going to do 1 part per million,' Russell said. They need a warning that it's going to change," he added. Russell's proposal was seconded by Pierre-Marie Petit, CEO and founder of ACINQ, the parent company of Lightning company Eclair. In an email, Zap Solutions founder Jack Mallers also motioned support for the fee bump when asked by CoinDesk. While the change would be small monetarily, other Lightning developers believe a simple fee proposal could negatively affect the project's decentralized image. The wrong notion? As part of the Bitcoin universe, Lightning has co-opted Bitcoin's enthusiasm for individual sovereignty and free markets. No, it hasn't. Understanding Russell's proposal within the context of the network then becomes political. Would the big three Lightning developers be setting a precedent by changing the default fee? And if so, what are the implications? And no, they're not. Lightning Labs CTO Alwaluwa Osuntoken came out strongly against the proposal, which he believes could easily be taken out of context, saying, quote, "This promotes the notion that somehow in Lightning, developers decide on fees," in an October 11th response to Russell's proposal. Actually, it doesn't, but we'll continue. Quote, "The operators set the fees. If the fees are too high, they don't get paid. That's the market," he said. Osuntoken told CoinDesk that educational initiatives matter more, and developers should steer clear of topics rife for misrepresentation. Lightning Labs CEO Elizabeth Stark agreed, telling CoinDesk that the fee market should develop from the ground up, not the top down. Quote, "I don't think developers should be changing those defaults," Stark said. I think the fee market will emerge. It's going to have to professionalize." Yeah, whatever. At the end of the day, it's still early for the Bitcoin payment solution. Mallers told CoinDesk the overhead for participating in the network remains low, and default fee increase or not, the network is heading in the right direction. Quote, "The cost of getting on the network and routing is downloading free software on a laptop," he concluded. No, actually, there are more costs related than that. There's the cost of establishing payment channels, and those have on-chain fees, which I want to get to that now, though. There was a point in here. Number one, it doesn't matter if the developers for those three entities decide to, among themselves, agree upon a higher default fee limit. However, they are not the only developers on the fucking planet. And more importantly, there may be within their own constituencies a significant number of developers, at least enough to support a project, who might decide to fork their shit. Because it is based upon open source software, they are perfectly capable of doing that. And so they could fork it, they could go off on their own direction, and they could set their shit lower. And now all of a sudden, the quote-unquote fee market is abounding again. But now, more importantly, let's consider the effect of increasing the lower end limit on Bitcoin Lightning transactions. If they increase the lower fee, the lowest end of the fee market to be like 5 times higher than it currently is, to me that means that it's a limitation on how much you can actually charge. You have kind of a lower bound, right? But because of that, you're going to be able to afford to do fewer transactions, i.e. maintain a smaller amount of. There was a point I'm trying to get to there, and I guess I might have gotten a little too high. Anyway, the point being that I think the increasing the lower end to 500, I don't think it's really, again, I don't think it's the developer's decision. They can make decisions for themselves, but that's about it. And again, this is the point that we keep coming back to. That this shit is ad hoc. Do you want to participate in it? You don't necessarily need to use Lightning Network in order to transact Bitcoin. It's still relatively cheap in order to do that, right? But see, the thing is at some point or another, the cost for doing that is going to go up. It has gone up significantly since I started participating in Bitcoin. Only part of that can be attributed directly to the price increase of in and of itself. The percentage of the transaction that's paid in transaction fees has actually gone up significantly. It used to be at one time, a long time ago, the possibility of doing a transaction without a miner fee was entirely possible. You could put a transaction out there, and if the miners wanted to include it, they could. If they wanted to reject it, they could. But it was an additional incentive to add the miner fee. And I had predicted at one point that would become permanent, or at least a default expectation. And the language changed. There was a time that we considered that a donation. And then it turned into a minor tip. And then, of course, it turned into a minor fee. And then a transaction fee. See, transaction fee, that doesn't even describe a relationship involving minors specifically. But the previous 3 iterations for that particular term did include minors. And I actually got in an argument with somebody where they were saying that evolution of the language didn't actually happen. I was here. It fucking happened. And if you go back to Andreas Antonopoulos' earliest talks, he mentions the fact that free transactions or transactions with really sub-penny fees were happening and were possible to do. But see, the fact of the matter is the fees have gone up in price. And it's because you're bidding for part of a 1 megabyte block. And, again, there's people that say that SegWit expands the block capacity possibility by like 0.3%, 0.3 megabytes. And that's all well and good. But still, you're limited to about 4,000, I think it was about 4,000 transactions per block. And so eventually, and I keep coming back to this, I know, but eventually I believe that the on-chain transaction fees will be so high that the average person won't be able to afford to maintain a Lightning anything. Because in order to establish new payment channels, you have to pay for an on-chain transaction to happen. Well, if you can't afford it, somebody else has to do it for you. A third party. And this is how it changes the relationship to you and Bitcoin. Instead of going from you to the person you're intending to do business with, it's you to your payment services provider, to the IRS, to the NSA, to the NYDFS, to fucking everybody else. And that completely defeats the entire purpose of using Bitcoin. Bitcoin is supposed to be permissionless. Nobody else is supposed to be able to tell you, oh no, you can't do business with that person. If you and another person agree to do business in Bitcoin as the transfer medium for the monetary value involved in the transaction, you are perfectly capable of doing that. However, if you introduce one of these entities, such as Eclair or whatever, not necessarily Eclair, but a third party using Eclair or C Lightning or any of these other iterations of Lightning, that you would be subject to their rules, and they of course would be operating under the rules of whichever regulating entity is involved in their particular jurisdiction. Here in the United States, there are a great number of people that regulate trusted third parties, such as people that would be involved in Lightning. So yeah, that's, again, I don't think that in the longer term this is going to be the option that people utilize to transact their Bitcoin. I think the people that are involved in it right now, they aren't doing so if Bitcoin is their only means of having money. I know I'm not, but again, that's just me. Anyway, shifting a little bit here, speaking of getting off of the main purpose of Bitcoin, why it even existed to begin with. This is on medium.com, Bloomberg's page. An early Bitcoin millionaire loses his love for the industry. He accidentally erased 800 Bitcoins valued at 6.5 million. Yeah, we're not going to read the subtitle there. This is by Bloomberg, so no indication of gender. This is authored on October 3rd. Oh, by Olga Karif, so no penis. As Bitcoin crashed 20% in late September, Jared Kenna, one of the first Bitcoin millionaires, returned to Twitter after a 3-year hiatus with a startling statement saying, quote, he lost the love for the industry. In the early days, quote, all we talked about was things that actually had substance, and very few people were talking about making money, Kenna said in a phone interview last week from Texas, one of his home bases. Quote, and now the only thing people focus on is making money. Kenna, who is 37, said he only owns half of Bitcoin, valued at about $4,000. He used to hold thousands, initially bought for cents on the dollar, and headed for Trade Hill Inc., the U.S.'s first cryptocurrency exchange, headed Trade Hill Inc., handling a quarter of all global Bitcoin trades. He got into the industry not to make money, though, but to change the world, Kenneth said, and has become disillusioned in recent years because instead of revolutionizing payments and challenging the banking system, crypto became all about speculation. Hearing an ad on his car radio several years ago encouraging people to mortgage their homes to buy Bitcoin took him aback. The initial coin offerings craze of 2017, in which startups raised billions by selling digital coins mostly to retail investors, and then often disappearing with the funds or not delivering any real products, was another blow. More recently, exchange-based coin offerings have taken center stage. Many of them likely as bad, he said. Many of his old crypto friends feel the same way, Kenneth said, though few are getting out since they are still practically minting money. Then there's also the prestige. Quote, I was in Miami last week and I went to a crypto event, and it was full of beautiful models looking for men, he said. Quote, I was like, this has changed, recalling gatherings full of tech geeks years ago, i.e. sausage fests. He is not crypto's only defector. Roger Ver, known as Bitcoin Jesus for proselytizing about the digital coin, now speaks against it and had split off to create a rival token. Many of the old-timers had, quote, unreal expectations about Bitcoin and didn't like it getting commercialized, said Nick Carter, co-founder of crypto tracker Coinmetrics. Quote, lots of the early utopian builders naturally got disillusioned, he said. That's to be expected. He calls the departed so many lost souls. Yeah, dude, it's because you have no idea what's really going on here. Ken has gotten out partly involuntarily. He accidentally erased 800 Bitcoin, valued at about $6.5 million, from his computer in 2010, and then lost millions of dollars worth due to a hack in 2016. He has since chosen to rebuild his life outside of the crypto world, creating what he said is the largest independent craft brewer in Colombia, building out of a co-living tech space in San Francisco, built from the ashes of his crypto wealth. Back in 2016, right before he was hacked, Kenneth sold half of his crypto and invested the money into a small brewery in Colombia, where he went thanks to a Colombian girlfriend who wanted to move home. Quote, we split up after a while, and I decided to stay and open the brewery, he said, 20 Mission Cerveza, which looks like your typical upscale pub with lots of unfinished wood, a stage for a blues band, and giant chandeliers. It's also now making tonic and ginger beer. The brewery's website is in Spanish except for its slogan, Stay Classy. Ken is now raising money to expand the business and wants to start importing the beer to the U.S. Back in 2012, he also bought a building in San Francisco for $2 million using his crypto wealth and turned it into the 20 Mission co-living space for techies and artists. There are 41 bedrooms and shared bathrooms and kitchen. Ken is considering buying a 144,000 square foot middle school near Boston to convert that building into a similar co-living space with 400 rooms and a tech incubator. Ken has been mostly out of crypto since 2016, when he said a hacker purchased a phone in his name. The hacker then changed his email passwords, took over some 60 accounts, and stole millions of dollars, he said. Ken was so stressed out, he said he had to go to a hospital and has been on blood pressure medication since. Quote, the hack took my entire life, Kenneth said. Just then, he was getting ready to relaunch a new crypto exchange, an effort that the hack derailed. Starting in 2011, TradeHill closed its doors in 2012, citing the need to get a money transmitter license and because of difficulty of finding a bank willing to work with it, among a host of other reasons, he said. In addition to his half a Bitcoin, Kenny said he owns a few thousand XRP and a stash of a lesser-known coin which he invested in 2 years ago. he doesn't think crypto will disappear altogether. Quote, let's say it's 90% speculation, he said. Well, casinos are 100% speculation, and they're still around. I agree. But yeah, I think that I think his call is really off. And I'll be honest, I think that at the moment, regular fiat currency still works and still has enough confidence in operation that most people don't actually quote-unquote need cryptocurrencies. They are optional. Your involvement in them is optional. This is always the case, but for some people it's more necessary than optional. And because most of the people writing these fucking stories aren't using cryptocurrencies, they're busy writing stories about people who use cryptocurrencies, they do not see this necessity. It's not really on their horizon. Their checks are not denominated in Satoshis. Their employer is not paying them in Bitcoin. So they're neither exposed to how Bitcoin works, on a personal level at least, nor are they experienced in the differential between using Bitcoin and other digital means of payment. Now, of course, if you were here for the progression from when this monkey got involved until to date, like I have, you know that there are certain realities behind the state of things, why things are the way that they are. And one of the reasons why things are the way they are is the 1 megabyte block size limit. That has not changed in the 10 years of operation. I mean, it wasn't always 1 megabyte. At one point it was a bit smaller. But anyway, the hard cap limit of 1 megabyte is what's imposed a lot of this problem. And I think in the longer term, the fact that altcoins are not beholden to anybody with regard to how they set things up. They don't have to set things up exactly as Bitcoin has done. We're introduced with the concept of competition then. And so that we're not stuck in some barbed wire fucking cage that says you have to do business like this. Okay, you can't afford to do on-chain transactions. You can't afford to wait for the time for your first confirmation, 2 days from now. No? Okay. Well, then you're going to have to do your transactions through a third-party intermediary. What kind of bullshit is that? Somebody says that to you, you say, no, I'm going to use Monero because I don't need a third-party intermediary in order to use Monero. And it's much faster. And it's much cheaper. And the same can be said for about 2,000 other options. And with this reality being what it is, I think that a lot of people in the Bitcoin community that are on this bandwagon with regard to their perspective on things here, and those that are really cheerleading Lightning and whatnot, I think these people are in for a really big surprise. That at some point in the near future, the necessity for using Bitcoin will come into their lives for one reason or another. And when it does, it's not just going to be a fucking speculative tool for them anymore. I mean, I hate to wish it on anybody, but the water really is nice out here. You ought to try joining me sometime. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. And I got some Death Angel playing in the background. We haven't played too much of them, and I think it's time. So let's get on up there, Death Angel, and not Bored. Although, yeah, let's go with Bored. Bored by Death Angel, here on Coin Metal. And that was Probot with Ice Cold Man. And so, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this whole kerfuffle concerning lightning. Anyway, and I tracked this down. This is on mail.archive or mail-archive.com. And this is by Rusty Russell. This is authored October 10th, 2019 at 7:50 p.m. Hello all, I've been looking at the current Lightning Network fees, and it shows that 2/3 are sitting on the default, which is, I guess, 1,000 MSAT plus 1 ppm, or 1,000 millisat. This has two problems. Number one, low fees are now a negative signal. Defaults actually indicate lower reliability, and routing gets targeted, trying them all. Or, I'm sorry, tar-pitted, trying them all. 2. There's no meaningful market signal in fees since you can't drop much below 1 ppm. Compare lightningpowerusers.com, which charges 10,000 MSAT plus 5,000 ppm, and seems to have significant usage, so there clearly is a market tolerance for higher fees. My question on that would be, how long have they been doing it, and exactly what is their market? Continuing on. I'm proposing that as of the next release of Sea Lightning, we change defaults on new channels to 5,000 MSAT plus 500 ppm, and I'd like the other implementations to join me. Over time, that should move the noise floor up. I picked 500 ppm because that's still 1% at 20 hops, so minimally centralizing. I picked 5,000 MSAT base for less quantifiable reasons. Here's the default fee at a rate table in USD at 10,000 per Bitcoin. Yeah, whatever. Oh wow, this goes from 0.1 cent to amount 0.1 cent. I'm just looking at the fee schedule here, and it looks kind of, yeah, whatever. Anyway, let's see. What's the thoughts on this? Let's see what the responses are, if I can find them here. Next message. That seems reasonable, and that was by Pierre. Next message. And I guess this is the next one that I was going to bring up. Yeah, okay. It's on the same thread. And this is by Oloalua. My apologies. I don't know who you are. Hi, Rusty. I think this change may be a bit misguided, and we should be careful about making sweeping changes to default values like this, such as fees. Such as fees. I'm worried that this post and the subsequent LGTMs by some developers promotes the notion that somehow in Lightning developers decide on fees. Fees are too low. Let's raise them. In my opinion, there are a number of flaws in the reasoning behind this proposal. Defaults actually indicate lower reliability, and routing gets tar-pitted, trying them all. Defaults don't necessarily indicate higher/lower reliability. Issuing a single CLI command to raise/lower the fees on one's node doesn't magically make the owner of said node a better routing node operator. If a node has many channels, with all of them poorly managed, then pathfinding algorithms can extrapolate the overall reliability of a node based on the failures of a sample of channels connected to that node. We've started to experiment with such an approach here. So far, the results are promising. There's no meaningful market signal in fees since you can't drop much below 1 ppm. Response: the market signal one should be extracting from the current state is a true market hasn't yet emerged, as routing node operators are mostly hands-off, as they're used to being with their existing Bitcoin node, and have yet to begin to factor in the various costs of operating a node into their fee schedule. Only a handful of routing node operators have started to experiment with distinct fee settings in an attempt to feel out the level of elasticity in the forwarding market today. If I double my fees, how much do my daily forwards and fee revenue drop off? Ken Sedgwick had a pretty good talk on this topic as the most recent SF Lightning devs meet up. The talk itself unfortunately wasn't recorded, but there's a ton of cool graphs really digging into the various parameters in the current market. He draws a similar conclusion, stating that, quote, many current Lightning channels are not charging enough fees to cover on-chain replacement. Developers raising the default fees on their various implementations won't address this, as it shows the majority of participants today, routing node operators, aren't yet thinking about their break-even costs. In my opinion, this generally this is due to a lack of education, which we're working to address with our blog post series, eventually to be full-fledged standalone guide on routing node operation. Tooling also needs to improve to give routing node operators better insight into their current level of performance and efficiency of their capital allocation decisions. God. You know, they've pranced around for 4 years saying run a live node and then run a Lightning node, and that's it. And now they're saying that the people running nodes aren't educated enough. Well, it's because you didn't bother to educate people on the fact that there was an actual education required in order to do so efficiently. Continuing on. IIRC, the fees compare lightningpowerusers.com, which charges blah 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 and seems to have a significant usage, so there clearly is a market tolerance for higher fees. Response: IIRC, the fees on that node are only that high due to user error by the operator when setting their fees. LND exposes fees on the command line using the fixed point numerator, which some find confusing. We'll likely add another argument that allows users to specify their fees using their basis points, BPS, or plain old percentage. Independent of that, I don't think you can draw the conclusion that they have significant usage based solely on the number of channels they have. That node has many channels due to the operator campaigning for users to open channels with them on Twitter. They provided an easy way to package LND for desktop users. A node having numerous channels doesn't necessarily mean that they have significant usage, as it's easy to, quote, paint the tape with on-chain transactions. What really matters is how effectively the node is managed. In terms of market signals, in my opinion, the gradual rise of fees above the current widely used default is a strong signal, as it will indicate the level of maturation in the market. Preemptively raising defaults only adds noise, as then the advertised fees are less indicative of the actual market conditions. Instead, we should, to promote a healthier network, educate prospective routing node operators on best practices, provide analysis tools they can use to make channel management and liquidity allocation decisions, and leave it up to the market participants to converge on steady-state economically rational fees. The fact that they're not bothering to adjust their fee parameters to break-even levels or even profitable levels at this point should indicate to you the level of expectations and sophistication of the actual users at this point. They're not being educated that these are expectations of them, much less how to do them properly, or efficiently, or profitably. And I've tried to tell you guys multiple times this, and maybe it will eventually bleed into this camp of people, despite the fact that I've been completely impaired from Twitter. Maybe I should weigh in on this thread or something. But these are all decisions that were basically eliminated with the prospect of peer-to-peer transacting. And when I say that, I mean on-chain transactions, the way Bitcoin was designed to be used, right? But all of this, trust and network reliability and whatnot, all of that is eliminated with the global on-chain network of miners. Now, of course, the necessity for off-chain transactions completely goes away if you increase the block size limit, because then the fees drop back down to a reasonable rate, which would be less than a penny if you do it right. And again, the necessity to do all this off-chain bullshit just goes away. And that's really going to depend on the miners. I think in the longer term, and when I say longer, I do mean like 1 to 2 years, there's going to be a significant change. And it's going to concern the electricity that these guys are using. That the rates for electricity, assuming of course they've managed to lower it to zero, or by offsetting it with some sort of renewable or something like that, that the rates for electricity, just for the electricity itself, will exceed the profitability of mining at the current level. And the miners themselves are going to say, look, I've got this fucking warehouse full of miners that I just bought like 6 months ago. I can do one of two things. I can either jerk myself off with these 1 megabyte blocks and hope that Goldman Sachs will run enough on-chain transactions to pay me $1,000 on-chain fees and make it worth my while, or I could start mining bigger blocks and signal to other people that, I'm willing to entertain an 8 or a 10 megabyte block size limit. I'm capable of doing it. Anybody else want to join me? The Bitcoin Cash Network has already shown that they can do 32 megabyte blocks reliably. Bitcoin SV, I don't put a whole lot of faith in them or whatever, but they've shown that they can do significant size blocks. Now, how they do it, that's a whole different story. But the point being that they've shown that the networks they have, which are significantly smaller than Bitcoin's network, are capable of sustaining larger than 1 megabyte size blocks. Which suggests to me, at least, that the Bitcoin network itself is capable of sustaining much larger blocks, because it's a much bigger network. It's a much more powerful network. So anyway, I think that at some point or another there's going to be a radical change. Either the price of Bitcoin, the motivation to mine more transactions per block is going to change. And when that value proposition changes, I think the response of the market is going to be increase the motherfucking block size limit and screw all these LND guys and Blockstream and all these other guys that have said to us that this is how you have to do it. Because the fact of the matter is they do not have that power over you. You're the one that sets up the parameters on your miners. Now, if you are sophisticated enough to be setting up your brain OS fucking system and whatnot, or or whatever means you're using to mine, there's much less sophisticated users than others, But in any case, you're the one that's free to set that up as you wish. And if you're bothering to even participate in mining or in cryptocurrencies at all, you really should probably be doing some mining or have done some mining at least. Just to get an idea of exactly what you're participating in. There was some response on that Medium article that we started with that was suggesting that Bitcoin is specifically made for, criminal activity. That's a really stupid read on this. It assumes that there was no actual, legitimate reason for Bitcoin to be brought into existence. But if you reflect back on when Bitcoin came into existence and under what conditions it was spawned, it becomes obvious that the idea of it being solely for criminal enterprises is a bunch of fucking bullshit. We were trying to give people a monetary unit that didn't depreciate in value while you were holding it in your fucking hand. Which is where the US dollar was going before we stepped in and said, y'all got to modify your behavior because now you got to compete with us. A bunch of fucking kids and young adults with consumer grade hardware that have set up a network that is more powerful than anything you have and does everything you do without you. You gotta fucking compete with us. And since then, a proliferation of other projects have spawned into existence that are saying, yo, you gotta compete with us too. And this has not changed. This has probably gotten a little bit worse since we've been talking about it. And so, yeah. The principal reason for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to exist is not to facilitate criminal activity. It's to facilitate permissionless commerce. To free us from the necessity to say, Daddy, may I? Mommy, may I? No. Mommy and Daddy don't issue these currencies. Mommy and Daddy don't mine these currencies. Mommy and Daddy don't manage the software on the hardware that mines these cryptocurrencies. You do. We've replaced them with you. You see how that works now? But the idea that this has changed or that the game itself has changed is complete bullshit. The game is still afoot, my children. It is still afoot. And just to prove that, I got this article here. It's on bitcoinist.com. Bitmain Texas Bitcoin Farm combats China mining monopoly. This is by Anja von Oosterhout. My apologies, ma'am. So no penis. And this is authored October 21st, 2019 at 5. No indication of whether that was PM or AM or what time zone. Shame on you, Anja. Bitmain Texas farm can hit 300 megawatts. In a press release, which we're going to right-click on October 21st, executives confirmed its latest Bitcoin mining farm in Rockdale, Texas, had launched. The 33,000-acre site will initially host a 50-megawatt farm, but its overall capacity can increase 6 times over to 300 megawatts in the future, Bitmain says. Should it reach those levels, the Texas site would then become the biggest mining farm in the world. Quote, "We are excited to launch this facility, which is significant to Bitmain's global expansion plans," lead project manager Clinton Brown commented in the release. Quote, "The stable and efficient energy sources in Texas are fundamental to the inevitable scale of growth for the cryptocurrency mining industry." Work began in 2018 on a 25-megawatt project. Operations will be a joint scheme between Bitmain and DMG, which will provide hosting and management services on a day-to-day basis. Quote, "This mining facility marks a major milestone in the development of the mining farm industry," the latter's COO Sheldon Bennett said. Bitcoin mining even split. The announcement comes at a pivotal time for Bitmain, which is still pursuing its initial public offering, IPO, in the US. Major competitor Canaan Creative beat it to the IPO crown last month, reportedly announcing a $200 million public listing for November. Throughout 2019, Bitmain's overall share of the Bitcoin hash rate pie has also diminished. As noted by Christopher Walken, co-founder of mining startup Hashrate, Bitmain's pools currently contribute around 27% of the total. By contrast, in January, that figure was closer to 42%. This, commenters have warned previously, placed a single entity close to controlling more than half of the market. For Walken, however, the trend does not constitute cause for concern. Quote, "People complain that the Bitcoin hash rate is too centralized, but this is one of the most even splits I've seen," he summarized, uploading comparative charts on Saturday. As Bitcoin is reported, Bitcoin miners are in fiercer competition than ever with one another over the mining rewards. Multiple metrics, including hash rate and mining difficulty, have repeatedly set new highs this year, despite the recent mixed performance of the Bitcoin price itself. The newly proposed Bitmain Texas Bitcoin mining farm comes only 1 week after Layer 1 announced the launch of their $50 million facility in Texas. Together, the two U.S.-based farms should help boost mining activity in the West and reduce China's rampant mining dominance. Yes indeed. Oh, and there is a comment. You are an idiot says, Bitmain is a Chinese company and is headquartered in Beijing. Yes it is. So yeah, I think that is a misread, and there's a reason for China having, or Bitmain having, any kind of foothold in the U.S., and that's specifically like tariff relief and shit like that. I think in the longer term we're going to see an increase in the number of mining chips and mining chipsets produced here in the United States. And I know that sounds kind of weird, right? But the fact of the matter is all of the disruptions that Trump has been causing in trade relations between the U.S. and China have caused people to start looking at that as an option, saying to themselves, okay, what is there any viable place in the United States where the regulatory burden is low enough that we can actually afford to manufacture miners here in the United States and circumvent all of that import-export bullshit? Or exactly how much of it do we actually have to manufacture here in the United States and get around that? But again, you'd be exposing yourself to significant convulsions in supply chains if you do expose yourself to shipping stuff in from outside, specifically from China. But yeah, like I said, I think that in the longer term, we are going to see more mining stuff built here in the United States, made here in the United States. And I think in the longer term, that's going to challenge China's dominance throughout the entire industry, you know, from manufacturing the mining chips themselves to mining itself. You know, I've said many times that I think that this is like the new mutually assured destruction paradigm for our age. You know, it's the warfare of tomorrow is not going to be kinetic. At least not in the sense of guns and bombs and missiles and shit. It's going to be your next door neighbor, and you're going to be competing for mining rewards. But that whole relationship is going to be global in scale, or is global in scale now. But the number of participants and the sophistication of those participants is going to expand. It's going to continue to grow. You know, I think that the reason why the articles that we're reading and whatnot, the reason why they're couched in these previous memetics, the memetics that actually mattered, is because that's the only barriers that we know about. You know, those are the ones we're conditioned to think within. But you know, Bitcoin and all of the altcoins out there that are run by groups of voluntary individuals, they started in a free and open pool, and they exist right now in a free and open pool, despite the efforts of all kinds of regulatory bodies and whatnot out there. It's still floating around. And in the future, I don't really see that changing. I see them continuing to exist. In the dimension of the market, it's not going to be limited in the ways that it is now. That the average person is going to have the understanding I do about money. And that it's going to be your confidence in the monetary unit that you're using, not only in its function, but whether or not people are willing to acknowledge it for a certain face value, or an exchange rate that you're in agreement with. But the scale of the market isn't going to be something where it's, you know, just your next door neighbor. If somebody in China, and I mean somebody, not Samsung, you know, if somebody makes something in China and puts a video out there for you to see exactly what it is, if they can send it to you, you can buy it from them. And I'm not, you know, when you talk about it in that sense, you know, it suddenly becomes obvious that the idea of big old manufacturing units and whatnot is, I believe at least, I think they're limited in time. I think there's going to be a place much like say a Blockbuster in your neighborhood, or a Walmart even in your neighborhood, that's going to have a manufacturing unit on site that will complete the end of the order for you. So say some kid designs something in China, and it's a new adaptation on a existing reel that you use, a fishing reel that you use. I know I related to that because I fish. But say he's scanned in a reel that you like, and he made some modifications that you like even more than the original. You could pay him for a copy of it. Send it over to Walmart, have it printed up for yourself, and for a fraction of the cost for it to be manufactured by Shimano, which was the original designer, it's just a fraction. You don't even have to wait for it to come from China. You just go down to Walmart and go pick it up. They could probably even have it packaged to where it even looks like it came straight from the Shimano fucking manufacturing place. And you would be looking at it and it looks like it was just, right there on the shelf. But that's where I see a lot of this shit going. And all of that is going to require for there to be networks out there that are running and that are mining currencies. And not everybody's going to use the same ones. Not everybody can, and not everybody will. And it doesn't really matter what the IMF has to say or Bitmain has to say. You're the one that uses the shit. That's something that, people that think about the future in terms of robots replacing everything, right? If there's no necessity for a thing, there is no reason to task a robot to do something. So, if I can't afford to buy your products, there's no reason for you to buy a robot to make it for me to buy. See how that works? Henry Ford had this all figured out. That's why he paid his people enough to be able to buy one of his cars. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I hadn't had anything specific planned, so let's go with a little Rivers of Nile, A Home, here on Coin Metal. And that was Death Clock with Burn the Earth. I know Motorhead was starting up with Ace of Spades. We might actually use that as our last dance for the evening. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again. Oh, shit. I haven't had verification on whether or not we will be doing our Wednesday show. I will be posting on social media if there is any change in schedule, and also in the Telegram and Discord chat rooms for Verge Currency. That's where else I can be found. But yeah, so and just in case you're wondering, if you want to get a hold of me, man, hit me up in the Verge Currency chat room in either Telegram or Discord. I'm always there. But yeah, like I said, possibly back on Wednesday. If there is any update, I will be certain to let you guys know. But yeah, as far as our last dance is concerned, I have not picked one out. I do love the Ace of Spades. It's a relatively short song, though. I'm really wanting to tap it right there at 11 p.m. for our ending, so it's like I gotta let it run just a little bit longer, and then maybe we can go ahead and do that. Screw it, let's go ahead and do it now. 4 minutes short, it's not gonna kill anybody, right? Anyway, so here it is, Last Dance, Ace of Spades by Motorhead, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.